Have you ever pondered over the leadership history of Africa? A continent rich in culture, resources and potential, but marred by instances of failed leadership. As diverse as the African landscape, so too are the stories of its leaders. From the savannas of Uganda to the deserts of Libya, the continent has seen a spectrum of leaders, some of whom have led their nations into prosperity and others into despair. Join us as we journey through the leadership history of Africa, unearthing the stories of 15 leaders who left a significant impact, for better or for worse. We begin our journey with Robert Mugabe of Zimbabwe, a leader whose reign began with hope but ended in economic collapse and despair. Mugabe, who promised a prosperous future, instead presided over a period of hyperinflation, corruption and human rights abuses. His iron-fisted rule, spanning over 3 decades, left Zimbabwe in a state of economic turmoil and political unrest. A similar tale is told in Uganda under the dictatorship of Idi Amin. Known for his brutal regime and human rights abuses, Amin's reign was marked by gross economic mismanagement, political repression and corruption. His 8-year rule resulted in the estimated deaths of up to 500,000 people, leaving a legacy of fear and devastation. Over in Libya, Muammar Gaddafi held power for over 4 decades. Despite his initial popular support, Gaddafi's reign was characterized by political repression, human rights abuses, and extravagant personal wealth, while his people suffered under economic hardship. His downfall marked the end of an era of tyranny, but the power vacuum left behind continues to plague Libya today. In the heart of Africa, Mobutu Sese Seko of the Democratic Republic of Congo ruled with an iron fist for over 3 decades. His reign was marked by corruption on an almost unimaginable scale, political repression and economic decay. Mobutu's rule left the Democratic Republic of Congo in a state of chronic instability and poverty. Lastly, we turn to Yoweri Museveni of Uganda. Initially hailed as a liberator, Museveni's long rule has been tainted by allegations of corruption, nepotism and human rights abuses. His continued grip on power raises serious questions about Uganda's political future. These leaders, once seen as liberators and visionaries, quickly became figures of tyranny and oppression. Their reigns of disgrace brought not prosperity and freedom, but despair and ruin. The legacy they left behind serves as a stark reminder of the destructive power of unchecked leadership and the enduring struggle for democracy in Africa. As we move forward in time, we encounter leaders like Omar al-Bashir, Hosni Mubarak, Jacob Zuma, Isaias Afwerki, and Teodoro Obiang Nguema Mbasogo. These individuals, much like their predecessors, began their reigns with promises of change, prosperity and progress. Yet, as history often does, it repeated itself, with these leaders falling into the same patterns that have plagued the African continent for decades. Omar al-Bashir of Sudan, for example, promised economic growth and stability. However, his 30-year rule was marked by corruption, economic decline and civil unrest. His leadership style, characterized by autocracy and suppression of opposition, led to the secession of South Sudan and the Darfur conflict, which resulted in the loss of countless lives. Hosni Mubarak of Egypt, too, pledged to bring prosperity to his people. But his reign was marred by widespread corruption, police brutality, and economic stagnation, leading to the Arab Spring uprising that ultimately ended his rule. Then there's Jacob Zuma of South Africa, whose leadership was riddled with scandal, corruption, and economic instability. Despite his promises of economic transformation, his tenure was marked by decline in the rand's value and a rise in unemployment. Similarly, Isaias Afwerki of Eritrea and Teodoro Obiang Nguema Mbasogo of Equatorial Guinea, despite their pledges to improve their countries, led regimes characterized by human rights abuses and economic mismanagement. These leaders, much like those before them, had the opportunity to break the cycle of failed leadership in Africa. They had the chance to bring about the change they so fervently promised. But instead, they fell into the same patterns of corruption, autocracy, and economic mismanagement. Their reigns, much like those of their predecessors, have left lasting impacts on their countries. Impacts that continue to shape the political and economic landscapes of these nations. These leaders, despite their promises of change and progress, fell into the same patterns of their predecessors. In the more recent past, we have seen leaders like Joseph Kabila, Paul Biya, Omar Bongo, Mengistu Haile Mariam, and Salva Kiir. These leaders, despite the modern era they ruled in, carried on the legacy of failed leadership. From Kabila's oppressive regime in Congo, Biya's iron fist in Cameroon, to Mariam's brutal reign in Ethiopia, their actions have left indelible marks on their nations. These modern leaders serve as a stark reminder that the cycle of failed leadership in Africa continues, and the need for change is more urgent than ever. The leadership history of Africa is a mix of triumphs and tragedies, of potential fulfilled and potential lost. We've traversed a journey of impactful leadership, its effects, and the desperate call for change. To delve deeper into the captivating history of Africa and its leaders, subscribe to our channel. Join us as we continue to explore, learn, and understand the fascinating stories that shape our world.